Hi, my name is Jennifer Lee. I have been teaching for 12 years in elementary. I've taught 4th grade, 5th grade, 2nd grade. Next year I'm going to be moving down to 1st grade because I really like teaching self-contained. Taught ESL, been in a Title I school for most of my career, in class support, a little bit of everything, all subjects. So I'm here today to talk to you about anchor charts. Anchor charts are very useful if they're used the right way. And first of all, they don't need to be cutesy, and you don't do them ahead of time. That's the number one rule in anchor charts. If you want your kids to use them, don't do them ahead of time, build them up with them. And it can be something that takes very little time, so you don't have to worry about, you're gonna see I'm not even gonna have any markers, I'm not gonna do any writing as I'm putting these together. When I'm teaching in math, typically I'm using a small group, and I'll see 3 or 4 groups, and so I'll do this with each one of the groups. So I will use painter's tape to move the things around, or I'll do it out on my small group table in front of them. However, after all the lessons have been done, I'll put them on to the anchor charts, and then I will put them up on the wall. So this is going to be a lesson on halves and not halves. 2nd grade math, this is when they're introduced to fractions. And what I would do is, they would already know about fair shares and equal parts. That would have been a lesson that we would have done previously the day before. So today we're going to start talking about halves, and then we'll move into the fourths and eighths and so on in later lessons. It's important when you're doing these to have lots of color. So I would have my kids, I would have it set up. If you're putting something on the wall, it's nice to use border to set it apart. I've done it with painter's tape directly on my wall. I've used yarn to have borders, but if you have the papers, you can put them up straight like this. So I tell my kids, all right guys, today we are going to talk about halves and not halves. And so we've been talking about how fractions have to have equal parts. And if they're not an equal part, it's not a fraction. So in order for something to have, you know what I need to add on here? Okay, so halves have 2 equal parts. For example, if I had this cookie and I made a line right down the middle, you can see those are fair shares, 2 equal parts. So that would be a half. Whereas, if I had this cookie and I cut it in halves, my friend wouldn't be too happy. This is not a half. So this would go up on our not half side. So when I'm putting the pictures up here, it's important to use color. You want it to pop, you want it to stand out with the kids, you want to have real world examples with them. I think it's really important for them to have the examples as well as the non-examples. So think about that ahead of time. And then some of the other ones that I have up here with the kids, I have a cupcake. You also need to think about things that you could actually, cut in half. If it's a milkshake, you're not going to actually be able to cut that in half, so that wouldn't be something that I would include on here. When I did this cupcake, I put it through this way because that would be something that we could talk about. Why is that not halves? They're not equal. Candy bar, that is something real world that they can put in half, and then my not halves. And from there I would progress into something that's not, like an actual food or something like that. We've got, right here I have squares. And so I would put those on there and the not, and we would talk about it. When you're teaching this, it would be useful if you also had a set that were out on the table with you in front of you that you're actually cutting so that you can put them on top of each other and they can see how they're actually the same size and they're not. Lots of manipulatives to go along with this. Think about things that they're going to see, you know, on your district testing and things like that. You're going to want to include those because they're not always going to see candy bars and stuff. That's why you're going to want to have different shapes and things. So let me check here and make sure that I'm putting all these parts on here. Important vocabulary and sentence stems. That's going to be the next thing that you're going to want to include on there. You want your anchor chart to be something that when they look at it, they're getting the vocabulary to talk about it and explain their thinking. So as we were going into this, I would say with my kids, I claim these are halves because, so this is our sentence stem right here, and we would stop and talk about it. Ideally, your kids would have their notebooks out in front of them. They would have small examples of these pictures. The student pictures wouldn't need to be in color, but they would be small enough. Once your kids are trained, they can be really quick with those cutting, and they can cut and they can glue those things in there as you're talking about them. They're going to actually write in the sentence stems as much as possible. You want them to do the writing. If there's anything that's a little lengthier and you have younger students, you can cut those out and they can cut the strips and they can put them right on there. So we would talk about, I claim these are halves because we would have a discussion about that. We could partner talk. You could cold call on your students and pull numbers. If you were in a whole group type of situation instead of a small group, which is more ideal. What I would also add to this one is that fractions must have equal parts. It's gonna have, I mean, it's basically the answer that's right here. But remember, this isn't us testing them. This is us explaining this part. And I would put up here this fair shares. This is first grade vocabulary that you're pulling into second grade. And so now that we have this one all built up and nice, we're going to go back over here to these non-examples, these not halves. And we are going to also put up a sentence stem so that they can talk about why they are not. I claim these are not halves because have them write out their answer, talk out their answer. These are up there, they stay on your wall for the unit. They don't need to be quite as big as what this one is. If you are going to be having a fraction wall and you're going to have eighths and fourths and everything else, I would set them up similar, but you could make it a little bit smaller scale. The kids are going to have it in their notebooks. When you are done with this unit, do not get rid of these anchor charts. You're going to save them. There's a couple ways that you can do that. You can take a picture of them, and then you can print out in color for all of your tables and a copy of the anchor charts, and then they go into a binder on your table, and it's like an anchor chart binder that they can refer to. You can also get, like the clothing racks that you would have like to dry clothes on and things at your house. You can buy those fairly inexpensive, and then you just hang these from the pants hangers and you can hang them up. This anchor chart at the end of the school year is going to go in the trash. If you want to save the pictures, the sentence stems, you can laminate it and save them and pull those back out, but you never want to have a completed anchor chart that you're taking from one year to the other, because the key is that the kids are building it with you, and as you're putting it up here, you're talking about it, they're building it out in their notebooks. You'll see later on, you'll see the kids when they're like taking a test and the walls are empty or you have things covered up. You'll see them looking up at the wall and they're remembering where the different things were on the wall for the different subjects. And because you have those sentence stems here with the vocabulary and it's kind of highlighted, it's sticking out to them, they're going to get better at using it, at remembering it, and applying it later on when they need it. It's been very successful. We've worked really hard over on my campus with word walls and anchor charts and incorporating them in small group and not having multiple copies of things. It's about working smarter, not harder. But we've had a lot of success. And this was actually an endeavor that we started with our science. We took it over into our math. And next year, my goal is to, since I'm going back to self-contained, is to make the language arts and the reading anchor charts more interactive and useful for the students. It's not all about looking cute. It's about getting it up there fast and having something useful for your kids so that you're not taking 10 extra minutes, with your markers and things trying to put things together. Thank you.